Hello and welcome to Robotics and Games Club. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to add in teachers and assistants. So we're going to click on Sign In, use my email address and my password, and click on Sign In. So this is the default screen for when you log in as a school or I think also assistant. If you sign in as a teacher and you want to get to this page, you'll just click on My Members, or if you look at something else, then you can click on My Members and get to this page. We're going to take a look at a few of the buttons right to begin with. If you click on Examples, you can see different games that were created with the software in Robotics and Games Club. You can play them, rate them, stuff like that. Click on Calendar. This is going to show you because if you have school permission or calendar permission, you can create your own events. This could be used to keep track of so that people will have an online version of events that are coming up. You can click on other organizations and see what events they have, and then maybe plan something. It will also show you events that are coming up through the Robotics and Games Club. So this is an event or a challenge that's coming up. It ends on, it should be ending on February 11th. I'll have to take a look at that because the end date should be February 11th. So I'll have to fix that. But you can see that this challenge is coming up, and come February 11th, that'll be the last day, and that will. So if you can try to make this, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting challenge, and I'll see how many people can get in on this one. Okay, so the last thing is club. So this is just the name, city, state, and country of the club. If you have something that isn't quite right, or you want to change the name or whatever, if you have school permissions, you can go in and change this. Okay, so let's go to My Members, and we're going to add in two teacher and a assistant. Okay. So we'll want to look at login, password, username, and we'll also throw permissions in there. I also want to do show edit. So if I click on that, it's going to allow me to edit the teachers and assistants once I get them created. So there's two different displays. One, it starts off with all teachers, which since we don't have any teachers, you're not going to see anything. You could click on school and see what the school is. You can click on different ways of sorting it, from ID to teacher. And then if I click on update, you can see now that I have admin, and this is me, and the permissions is school. Okay, and then it also pops up with that little edit selector, and this edit will let me go to the individual editing screen and make changes, but we'll deal with that a little bit later. All right, so I want to click on show input. So here, show input, this allows you to add in teachers and staff members and students. Everybody gets added in through this portal. So I want the login to be something similar to this. It's not quite right. I want it to just be J Smith, but since I don't have one of those options, I can pick this one. This one would also do the same thing, and it'll get me at least started. I want 0 random numbers. And so as you click through these options, you can look on the example or beneath the example on the right hand side and see what is it going to look like. And I don't want cat at dog. I just want the name of the company, Hard Knocks. So I can select Hard Knocks, and it's a company, so it's going to be .com. Okay, so the idea is then that this would be the emails that I'm going to be creating are emails in the the account with my company. So this is an actual email, and when they create their passwords, if they forget their passwords, they can use the reset password function. All right, there's that. The password, the initial password is going to be a 3-letter word, and we're going to have a random 3 numbers. So if I wanted to have 5 random numbers, you can see it changes like that. Or if I said I want 3 random letters, it's going to pick 3 random letters, which are going to be either uppercase or lowercase. Okay. I like the 3-letter word because it's simple enough, and they're most likely going to be changing it anyways. And the username I want to be the login name, and I don't want random numbers on there. So the login name is going to be just their name.smith. If you have more than one, or somebody else already has john.smith, what it will do is it'll tack a 1 on the end of it when it does the creation. So we're going to select this, copy. So these are the 2 guys that I'm going to add, John Smith and Bob Anderson. Okay, so I've got all of this filled out. This would be if I wanted to add them to a teacher, but I don't have any teachers, so right now it's going to be none. And I can click on update. Okay, so now you can see it created 2 accounts. So we've got Bob Anderson at hardknocks.com. I've got John Smith at hardknocks.com, and we've got their passwords and first, last name and username, and their permissions are student. Okay, so I want to take Bob Anderson, and I want Bob Anderson to be just a teacher. So I'll click on edit. That'll take me here. And oh, I also didn't want it to be Bob Anderson. I wanted it to be B. Anderson. All right, get rid of student. I want assistant and teacher. I'm going to leave the password the way it is. And I'll leave the date of birth. And then when Bob Anderson logs in, then he can fix the date of birth, change his password. You can change what kind of language that he wants. Site language, you can do either English or Japanese. Programming language, it'll switch actually the programming language to be either English or Japanese. And then the questions, we'll deal with those once we get to the students. Okay, so now I click submit. And now I'm going to go back to my members. And it remembers where what I had selected from the last time. And I can see now that Bob Anderson is an assistant and a teacher. So John Smith, I want to be just a teacher. So I'm going to click on edit and get rid of student. I want teacher. Again, I'm going to do the same thing here because his login is actually J. Smith. And then these are all good, and click submit. Okay, profile, back to my members. So now I've got them as actual teachers. Okay, so when I do my creation, so now I can add students as school, or I could, the teachers, the staff could log in and create students, but it's done the exact same way. So, the only thing is, if you're just a teacher, you will only have one option. So if I click on show input, I can add to a teacher, and I can select either one of the teachers that I've got here. If they log in, so if Bob Anderson logs in and wants to change wants to add or edit students, he can select what teacher he's looking at because he's an assistant. If it's just a teacher, if the person who's logging in is only a teacher, then they will only be able to modify students under their name. So we're going to click on John Smith because we're going to create some students for John Smith. And we're going to say we've got 2 students, both John Smith and Bob Anderson, just to show you how this works. We're going to go with, we'll pick a random 3-letter word and random random 3 numbers, and then it's going to be at Hard Knocks. And I want it to be, these are students, so I'm just going to put STU. I mean, you can put whatever you want. Since they don't have a real account, I don't want to put the .com on here, because then if I ever get somebody, let's say I actually, instead of using the random or the three-letter word and the random number, if I pick as their initials, let's do that. Nah, it's not going to make a difference on this one, because I switched their name. I switched their name to J. Smith and B. Anderson. So it isn't really going to make any difference. But if you did, they would take up the space of a real person, as opposed to just having this be some fake account that doesn't really exist, because they can't log in anyways, because they don't actually have an email account. If they did, then we'd do it like how we did it with Bob Anderson and John Smith. Okay, so we've got the password is going to be a three-letter word and random. Username, we're just going to go with the login username, and it's going to tack on some random numbers, so we just want to get rid of that. So it's just going to be whatever login they have, which is just going to be random names and random numbers. Okay, so now I have my two people that I'm going to add. Actually, I will do it this way. So because I didn't change their username, it's still Bob.Anderson and John.Smith. I'm going to leave this as John Smith, get rid of this, and we're going to go with that. Okay, so now I've got two students, John Smith and Bob Anderson. Then when I click on update, it will add them in as students under John Smith. Okay. So let's click, the other thing I want to change is I'm going to take a look at all teachers. Okay, so I'm going to change the view and click update. And now I have John Smith as one of my teachers. The other teacher doesn't have any students, so it doesn't actually create a namespace for him. Again, if you wanted to take a look, you can, let's just take a look at this. So it creates Bob Anderson 1 and John Smith 1 because the username is already taken. So it bumps them both up, both the login and the username. So you're not going to have Bob Anderson 5 and username is Bob Anderson 2. They're going to stay the same. We've got the passwords here, out and fun 666. And what else? So the permissions are student. Again, you can go in and edit these, but if John Smith logs in, you can see that he's logged in and has these two students will show up under him, but he won't be able to see if Bob Anderson has any students. John Smith won't be able to see that because John Smith is only a teacher, not also an assistant. Whereas Bob Anderson will be able to see John Smith's students. John Smith will not be able to see Bob Anderson's students. Okay, so here we've got this. We've added in those students. This is all set to go, and I think that's all I'm going to do. Yeah, that's all I'm going to do for this one. So one of the things I will have to remember when John Smith won. So this was the other thing. So that's the reason why I added in, I wanted to do John Smith. So we've got, it bumps up their account. So if I added another set of John Smiths and Bob Andersons, it would be Bob Anderson 2. And it will just automatically add numbers to the end to try to get an account that it works. If you don't like that, you can always go to, you could always pick the random, and you probably wouldn't have that problem. Otherwise, you can always go to edit and change the name however you want. Like all these fields, you can change them to whatever you want, but you cannot have a duplicate login, and you cannot have a duplicate username. That it does not do that. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. When you're done with this, just click Profile and Sign Out. And then the next one, I'll go through how to add in, or how to log in as one of the students and create an easier way to log in.